Hello everyone, and welcome to How to Solve Equations with One Variable. So, COVID's kind of made school very difficult for everyone. We all have to kind of do things digitally. So my goal is to kind of make some math videos that are going to explain concepts to you to where you can do it yourself and do them pretty easily without ever really needing to use a calculator. So let's kind of get into one variable equations and how we solve them. So we're going to start with the steps of how to do them. So when you get an equation that has one variable in it, it can look, like anything. So in this case, let's look at 42 divided by x times 3 equals 21. We'll work with that. So you get yourself an equation like this, and you gotta get x by itself. So your number one goal is going to make sure that you have x left on one side of the equation. So you get x by itself by isolating it through some just kind of basic algebra. So, just dividing, subtracting, all that stuff. So you start with this equation, and you need to start with identifying your PEMDAS. So, order of operations. So we got parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So keep order of ops in your mind and kind of look at what you got. So we have 42 divided by x. We have some division there. And we have multiplied by 3. Got some multiplication. So, all right, we're dealing with multiplication and division. So you got to get rid of that 42 and that 3 using our math skills and get x by itself. So what you got to do is identify any of the numbers around x, the operations being performed on them. So we got division and multiplication, and you're going to get rid of those by doing the inverse. So you're going to identify it first, kind of remembering your order of ops, and then think to yourself, inverse. So in this case, we're going to start with the times 3. So times 3, inverse of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. So when we divide that 3 away, we're going to do the same thing to both sides of the equation. So when I divide a 3 from the left, a 3 goes away from the right. So you might be thinking, why do we do the same thing to both sides? And here's a quick explanation for you. So we have ourselves, 2 plus x equals, 8. So, okay, so based off of that equation, you can probably think to yourself right away, all right, x is 6. 2 plus 6 equals 8. So let's kind of take a look at it this way. If you subtract 2 from both sides, you get x is equal to 6. And 2 plus 6 equals 8. Okay, so that satisfies the equation, all right, because we did the same thing to both sides. Now, what if we don't do the same thing to both sides? So, okay, so I'm just going to get rid of that 2 to get x by itself, and that gives me x equals 8. And in case you don't know, 2 plus 8 does not equal 8. So if you don't do the same thing to both sides, you're not going to get the right answer. You got to keep that equation you got to keep it equal throughout the entire time you're solving it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with the wrong answer. So kind of think of it that way. If you don't do it, that's what's going to happen, and you're just going to mess yourself up. So as long as you do the same thing to both sides, you should be good. And that's going to be our third step to remember. So we identified it, you're doing the inverse, and when you're doing it to both sides. And that is the absolute most important part of this tutorial. So to both sides. So when we get rid of that 3, it goes away from right there, and we get 42 over x is equal to, 21 divided by 3 is 7. So 42 divided by x equals 7. So now you're left with this kind of funky fraction over here, and you're just going to repeat your exact same 3 steps. It's the same throughout the whole thing. So, okay, identify my operation. I have division involving x. So now I got to do the inverse of that. So multiply it by x. Multiply this side by x. And I did it to both sides, and then simplify. So 42 equals 7x. So keep repeating the steps. Okay, got multiplication now, 7 times x. So divide it by 7. And that is going to leave me with x equals 6. Now, your fourth step was simplify, because we had 21 divided by 3, simplify that. And your fifth step is going to be plug in your x to the original. So I'm just going to abbreviate that to plug into original. And you have to do this just to make sure you have the correct answer. It's so important. If you skip this step, you can really mess yourself up. And if you have the wrong answer, just move on. It's a point off on your whatever work you're doing. So just make sure you plug it back into check. So we have our original equation up here. 42 divided by x times 3 equals 21. So let's plug that 6 back in. So 42, I'll just do it up here. 42 divided by 6, that simplifies down to 7. And 7 times 3 does equal 21. So our x value satisfied the equation. So that means we did it correct. So just remember the 5 steps of kind of identify the order of operations that's kind of happening in the equation, do the inverse of whatever operation it was, do it to both sides, simplify down, and then once you kind of repeat these steps until x is isolated, then plug in whatever x you got to the original equation, and it should work. So let's do some examples now that we kind of have the gist of it. So here's our first example. We have 16x minus 4 divided by 2. So, in order to solve this one, we kind of gotta get rid of that fraction. No one likes working with fractions, they're a pain to deal with. Let's just get rid of it. So to get rid of a fraction, you gotta kind of multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. So we're gonna multiply everything by 2, and that is going to get rid of that 2 over here, and that's going to leave us with 16x minus 4 equals 60. So this is much nicer to work with. We're going to identify the operation, minus 4, okay, plus 4. And now we're going to be left with 16x equals 64. And now that we have that, okay, next operation was multiplication, because 16 times x, do the opposite, divide by 16. And that is going to give us the answer of x equals 4. Now let's plug it back into the original. So 16 times 4 minus 4 divided by 2. Let's see here. That gives us 64 minus 4, which equals 30. And then bring up that divided by... Well, I already divided that there. So the x equals 4 is our final answer. So that's how it works. Let's go on to the next example. So example 2. We have more complicated fractions than we don't like working with fractions. So get rid of them. So in this case, the way we get rid of them is multiply everything by 4. So we're going to distribute that 4 all the way through to everything, and that's going to leave us with 3 plus 2x equals 11. Now that is much nicer to work with. So subtract 3, and you get yourself 2x equals 8, and that's going to give us divided by 2 to simplify, and we get x equals 4. So x equals 4, that would mean that to check it, we would just go 3/4 plus 4 over 2 equals 11/4. Now, got a different denominator there. We got to kind of adjust that. So multiply everything in that one by 2. That gives us 3/4 plus 8/4 equals 11/4. And Denominators are the same. Add the numerators. 3 plus 8, 11. Let's give us 11 fourths equals 11 fourths. That means it works. So let's move on to our next example. And this time we have some parentheses to work with. So, okay, the parentheses, we got to do some distribution. So distribute the 2 to everything inside the parentheses. And we're going to get ourselves 2x plus 12 equals 18. So that's much nicer to work with. It's a pretty simple, quick one. We're just going to subtract the 12. And that leaves us with 2x equals 6. And let's just get rid of the 2. And that gives us x equals 3. So now to check that one, we get, let's see here, 2 times 3 plus 6 equals 18. And I wrote that wrong. Let's see here, yay, equals 18. And we just kind of mess around with that. So that gives us 2 times 9 equals 18. And 2 times 9 is 18. So that is correct. X equals 3 was our correct answer. So let's move on to this next one. So, all right, we got another weird fraction to work with. This one's very similar to the example we did in the step-by-step explanation. So let's start with getting rid of that 17. So let's subtract 17 from both sides. So that does that, and we get 49 divided by x equals 7. Now multiply the x over, and we get 49 equals 7x. So, all right, divide by 7. That'll get rid of the coefficient of 7 next to the x, and that gives us x equals 7. And we're going to check our work by going 49 divided by 7 is plus 17 equals 24. Well, I know that 7 times 7 is 49, so 49 divided by 7 is 7 plus 17 equals 24. And 7 plus 17 is 24. That means x equals 7 was our correct answer. And that concludes our video for today. I hope this taught you exactly how to solve one variable equations and that you found it helpful. If you could do me the favor and kind of like, subscribe, it really helps out the channel, kind of keeps the math content flowing. And I really hope that you were able to understand all the concepts in this video. Please leave a comment down below if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer them. But if this is all you need and it was a help to you, hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next one.